Good morning. My name is Pat O'Brien. I'm a candidate for State's Attorney of Cook County in this election. I've got members of the community with me who have interest in the domestic violence issues that are plaguing this county, and also family members where their loved ones were victims of homicide, which is also a virus that's plaguing this county. Now, we feel that in those two areas, this state's attorney has failed miserably. When reports of domestic violence continue to soar during the pandemic, the state's attorney Foxx has enforced a shutdown of her victim screening office at Chicago's domestic violence court. There is a number that is a hotline number which can be called by victims of domestic violence, victims who are more vulnerable because the shutdown has basically imprisoned them with their tormentors. And what do we have when you call that number? A number that, as said, is a hotline. We have an automated voice with a series of instructions, not a human being. So when a person reaches out who is a victim of domestic violence, instead of talking to an assistant state's attorney or any member of the state's attorney's office, they talk to a recorded voice. That's Kim Foxx's nature and state of this office. The most vulnerable are treated as if they are throwaways. This continues to force victims of domestic violence and sexual assault who are seeing charges against their assailants left on voicemail outlining their complaints, and sometimes there's no one that gets back to them. If you call a hotline, you've got a situation that is an emergency. You don't need to have to wait, and shouldn't, for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, hours, days for some response, because that response comes too late. So rather than meeting with an advocate or a prosecutor, as victims are entitled to do, they're forced to leave this voicemail message. And these messages, as I indicated, are often not returned for days or even weeks. And so the victim is left to the whims and to the mercy of their tormentors. At a time when the calls have surged, Kim Foxx has closed off access to justice for our most vulnerable victims. And that shouldn't be the case. But this is just another example of her policies and failures, and how the rights of criminals are given more respect than the rights of victims. She has failed to charge domestic violence cases. She has failed to get orders of protections into the hands of victims because they need that proof when they make a call or report additional abuses to show to the police. The police need that in order to properly charge and properly go after these offenders. And domestic violence victims and the failure to assist them is not the only problem that Kim Foxx has created and exacerbated in her failed policies. Homicide rates and shootings in Chicago have skyrocketed this year. We're on a pace to have more than 700 homicides in Chicago alone. Homicides as a statistic are dry, and they don't have the kind of meaning or human faces that the actual family members who have their loved ones as victims of these homicides. That is the real care and the real point behind a statistic. The human beings for whom this tragedy resonates not just at the time of the tragedy, but across the days and years of their lives. And they need justice. And too often, Kim Foxx's office does not even come close. There is no attempt to solve these cases. There is no attempt to keep contact with the families in order to update them on whatever progress might be made. There's no attempt to order special grand juries into session on open homicides to see if the grand jury and subpoena process can possibly increase the amount of evidence which will allow charging, in some cases, of offenders who are known. What I'm doing today is announcing that the State's Attorney's Office, when I am State's Attorney, will create a witness protection and children's security program which will enable people who live in these gang-infested neighborhoods to come forward without fear of retaliation. It's something that's a long time coming. Just back in 2019, an example of the failure of Kim Foxx is quite glaring. A woman, Trasia, who testified in a homicide case where there was a conviction of the person she testified against. She then was sent back into the community. That defendant, from his jail cell, put a $5,000 bounty on her head. And within months, Trasia was dead. Now, that person was caught and admitted to the reason why he killed her and connected the person Trasia had testified against to that bounty. This is regrettable and it is preventable. But instead of this wake-up call engendering and beginning a witness and children relocation program, nothing more was done. There needs to be a program in existence which allows these witnesses to come forward, which relocates them, which provides either job training or jobs in a different city, which provides and gets their children into schools that are appropriate, which gives them housing assistance, and which gives them counseling because of the disruption that's been caused because they came forward to testify. This is a long time coming, but other state's attorneys and district attorneys' offices have done it. The fact that Chicago hasn't done it and that Cook County hasn't done it after Trasia is a mark on Kim Foxx, on her failure to recognize a problem and to deal with it in a solution that tries to address the problem. There's a glaring need for this witness protection program. The fact that it's not being done is a glaring example of why Kim Foxx should not be given a second term. State's attorneys, employees, assistants, and people that are administrative, they may not be first responders, but they are critical to the justice that this county's residents will receive, and they are critical to keeping us all safe. They can't be clustered in their office behind closed doors. They've got to be interacting with the community that they serve. Just like the police and just like doctors and nurses, there are some positions or jobs that you hold where you cannot let this virus wall you off from the duties that you have. State's Attorney Kim Foxx has been a failure in domestic violence and in attempting to give justice to the families of victims of homicides that have gone unsolved. It's time that we fire her, and I ask respectively, it's time that you vote for me for State's Attorney. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have the families where they have loved ones who are victims of homicides, in some cases either not solved, or if solved, where they have been given lack of information about how the case is going. So if you go up and hold the picture right in front of there.